3, 2, 1, showtime!
CO, hello, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. I'm your host, Cade Thomas, and I'm here, joined this week by Diane and Gus. Gus, this is your first time on the show. That's pretty exciting.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Diane, how are you doing?
I'm great. This is Max, by the way. Here's Max. Max is here to tell me he's hungry and that he's really wishing that I had put supper out before this show started. What can you say? My life is ruled by dogs.
Yeah.
I think I could set you back down now, Max, and you won't bite me? He's a biter. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. We'll test it right here live.
Oh! Good job, Max. Good job. You did not bite me. A successful, departure from the lab.
Yeah, great. I'm sure it's going to be really good for our audio listeners later, too. They're going to be taken through a journey. So this Double Feature Movie Club, we're going to be talking about the movies American Animals from 2018, and then after that, we're going to be talking about the movie Enemy from 2013. Both interesting. So they're both thrillers. So maybe there's a theme there, a randomized theme. How's your guys' weekend? How was your weekend? Any fun stories?
Which one do you go first? I can go first.
Mine wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Did you referee any soccer games yesterday?
I did. I was refereeing soccer games and basketball games. I was being verbally abused by soccer moms on the field. I tried my best to make some good calls.
Gus gets to experience the underbelly of American parentage every weekend during soccer season. I guess I always heard that Little League Baseball moms were the worst, but I'm thinking that maybe soccer moms might actually be worse.
I think so. I think it's because they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah. So how was your weekend, Diane?
Well, I went back to the dog park.
Oh,
and
a sequel.
Yesterday was a good day. There were no cats at the dog park.
Uh-huh.
So we were able to hang out there for a while. And then but today we had cattage again. And I realized the name of the dog park is the Cat Creek Dog Park.
Okay.
So
maybe that was what the
confusion.
confusion.
Join the Facebook page to see if maybe there's some insights as to why we would have cats at a dog park.
Oh, did you ask the group, or are you still waiting on them to admit you to the group?
I'm still waiting on them to admit me. My dog's maybe too small to be part of that group. There's some big dogs there.
Mm. Well, that's
exciting.
Great. Yeah, keep us up to date with that story.
I will. This is breaking news in my neighborhood.
Now, Gus,
what about your weekend, Cade?
Oh, my weekend. My weekend was pretty much uneventful. I saw two other movies on top of these movies this weekend, so I've got a lot of movies watched. I went to go see that. What was Everything Everywhere All at Once? Have you guys seen about that? It's a new A24 movie with Michelle Yeoh. A lot of the film people, they've been raving about this and it came out this weekend and been looking forward to it. So it's a lot of people, those, what I don't know what you want to call them, cinema heads. They all were looking forward to this movie. So I'm like, I gotta go see this movie too. And it's great. It's astounding.
I loved her in Star Trek Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes.
She is so talented.
And this role, she's brilliant in this role. Like this is an extraordinary role. And I want to go as far to say that this movie, so far in the year of 2022, I think it's the best movie so far this decade. Is how. So it's only 2 years, but but it's that extraordinary.
The name of it was Everything.
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is the name of it, which is, it's broken. I didn't know this until watching it, but it's like broken into like 3 parts. And so the part 1's called Everything, and part 2's Everywhere, and part 3's All at Once. So and then the movie's called that. So it's a real stylized film, and it's really heartfelt. It's got a lot of heart to it. I really, really did like it. And the other film I saw was Morbius.
I have not read good things about that movie.
How was Jared Leto?
I think it's better than what people are saying it is, but then but is it great? No. Is it entertaining? It's entertaining, and if you like the Venom movies, then you'll like this. And I do like the Venom movies for what they are.
I like the Venom movies,
and these are really just like, if they really go this route with Sony of like with these movies where they're just like these character actors come in there and do like a schlocky horror kind of superhero movie, then if that's what these are, then I'm all for it. Like where they kind of get to be ridiculous and fun and weird, and I don't know. I like them, but are they the peak of cinema? No. But then again, what is, except for Everything Everywhere All at Once? That is the peak of cinema.
Better than Batman?
No, it's not. It's not. These aren't. I enjoy those movies, but I don't think they're great movies, but I do enjoy them. So for that reason, I guess I'd recommend Morbius. But I don't know. At least they're doing something weird. I feel like every Marvel movie is just the same movie, so it's like, at least this is weird. At least they're kind of being odd, So gotta give it that. But does it work all the time? No, it doesn't. It kind of gets a little boring in the middle, but I'll tell you, the first part of Morbius, like the first 30 minutes of it, I'm like, this actually might be good. Like I was like, oh, this is not like, this actually could maybe actually be wrong. This actually could be a good movie. But then it kind of just does. it kind of falls apart a little bit and becomes slow. But
yeah.
But no, I still liked it.
I never quite trust critics when it comes to superhero movies. It's like maybe they don't realize they're in a superhero movie and they have an expectation of something different, but they are what they are, and you can't take this seriously. And it's like they're always trying to figure out a way to make these movies serious, and they're not. Yeah, they're popcorn.
I thought they went with an interesting choice to choose some like a villain from the Spider-Man series that not a lot of people even know of. Mm-hmm. So even going that direction maybe threw some fans off, and how much of a backstory this character really does have.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think obviously Sony is trying to gear up and make their own superhero franchise world thing. Like that they're trying to make their own thing that compete with. People wondering, I think we could kind of hear, is that Diana in the background that's making stuff?
It's Diana in the background. She's making So right now my wife is cooking, and everyone can hear her. Sorry about that. I'll have a little bit of what you're having.
Yeah.
We can be there 20 minutes after this is over.
Yeah. No, yeah. So I mean, they're trying to do their own thing. Sony's trying to do their own thing, and I think personally, this is my guess with the movie, but I mean, and some people have sort of assumed that. I think these take place in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies. I mean, I think that they're not clear about it yet, but and they haven't made their decision yet about what this is going to be. But given the feedback from the last Spider-Man movie, I think that they're going to go that route, and it makes sense for what they're doing, that it's going to be the separate thing.
So it's going to be in a multiverse thing, huh?
Mm-hmm. It obviously takes place in some sort of separate universe. Like, it's clear that this takes place in the Venom universe because there's little references to Venom. So it's at least clear about that. But yeah.
Gus, do you know in the Spider-Man comic series, did Morbius and Venom ever fight or meet up? Or I don't remember that.
I'm not sure. I'm familiar with the Spider-Man series, the animated one that was in the late 90s, right? You know which one I'm talking about, Cade?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, at some point there might have been some kind of meetup between the two characters. At least in the comic series, I'm not too familiar.
I would imagine every comic book character everyone's met at some point.
That's true.
So
there's been a fight there somewhere.
Yeah, and Morbius did have his own comic at one point, his own run. So, and of course Venom did as well, several. So I'm sure that there was some crossover there at some point. But I don't know if there was a big storyline in which they did or not. Well, I also did, before we get started, I wanted to talk about, Gus and I have both been watching. Gus is also part of our trivia team that we have, that Diane and I have mentioned a few different times.
Yeah.
We've
the sports
talked.
Dude.
Yeah, he's the sports dude.
I am the sports specialist. And music, 90s rap
music.
and 2000 hip hop.
That's the truth.
It's much appreciated. Because
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah. But we've been talking about a show we've been watching, but it just wrapped up this weekend. The Dropout. That's a fun show about Elizabeth Holmes. Did you enjoy it, Gus? The show?
I watched the documentary on Theranos before I watched the show, which I've had some friends who've done the opposite. And this really did a good job of portraying Elizabeth Holmes and just kind of digging deeper into who she is and really how odd she is. And I think it's a good twist on Theranos and everything that they were doing, but a little hint of comedy with it too. Because it was just so awkward watching the show sometimes and just oh my gosh, I can't believe she's doing that. And
she was an incredibly awkward person.
But the chemistry between the two actors were really good between who portrayed Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Bawani. So I thought that was really good in itself. Yes.
I loved... Amanda Seyfried did just an amazing job with it, and her performance is pretty great. It's an amazing step forward, and all the different. It was devastating.
I thought she nailed the eyes. That was the biggest thing. Aside from the deep voice, I mean, her eyes, way that they were just so large the entire time. Yeah. Creepy, but. It was
just awkward.
Yeah,
she was she's kind of, and she nailed that sort of kind of the awkwardness of her really well, I thought too. But it's a good show. I would recommend it. But that voice, I can't. I mean, because it's a manufactured voice.
This is an empowering step forward, Edmund.
yeah. This is an empowering step forward. And yeah, I just was devastated. Ultimately, it was just devastating, and I don't know, just all of her, just yeah, there was just her speeches and everything. Yeah, yeah, would recommend it.
She was trying to emulate Steve Jobs, I understand.
Yeah, with the turtleneck,
And
and
she idolized him a lot,
Mhm.
even with even with her own attire too, with the turtlenecks and just the way that she carried herself.
Being a dropout, like that was a badge of honor almost, but just specifically amongst Silicon Valley types. It was kind of like shown to be, that's a good thing or whatever, or that's somehow supposed to comfort you in some sort of way that this person couldn't finish college, but now they're gonna be make a startup.
So does she have some kind of narcissistic personality disorder, or did they ever get into any of
Yeah,
what her psychosis is?
I wouldn't say like that. She wasn't. She was Yeah, they definitely. I mean, it went into like her psychology a little bit, but like I don't know what I would sort of classify her as. Like she was. I mean, she sort of develops into this person. Like I think that was sort of like, it wasn't something that she was always saw herself. She wanted to be a billionaire. That was like, this is her big pie in the sky thing, was that she was like, in whatever it took to sort of become that and to reach that. And so slowly, which I think that's a thing that, happens with a lot of these people. There was a great internet video about, the guy from Vox. He did a video about about Bill Gates, and about how he called it like these tech CEOs and just famous people in general. There's this he calls it jumping the chair moment, kind of similar to Happy Days of the Jumping Shark, where like where Bill Gates was interviewed by somebody. I want to say it was Connie Chung, and he was asked to like jump over this chair, because I guess he said that he could jump over a chair in like a single bound from behind it. And so they asked him to do that. And it was kind of like, this guy pointed to it as like, this is probably the last like human moment we've ever had publicly of Bill Gates ever. And this was like in the 90s. And every time since then, he was very calculated and very he kind of hid his personality, and you can sort of see that a lot with a lot of people. And so you can Zuckerberg, that there becomes a time in which they're very open and they're like all that, and then all of a sudden there comes a switch that happens in which from that point on they are very calculated and they guard things, and I think that they do a really good job in this show about showing her this evolution of her, where she's like, she becomes ruthless and looks over like bad things that happens, all in the end goal of being a billionaire. She had an odd
personality, but she had like an odd way of even convincing people, that was like the biggest thing, was like being able to convince these entrepreneurs to just invest in her company, and the whole thing was sketch to begin with, but I don't know how she was able to really manipulate some of these older, rich white men to put money into this. I wish they would have honestly dived into a little bit deeper. I mean, they definitely showed more of like her failed pitches when she would go out and pitch to all these huge tech guys in Silicon Valley and trying to get money from like pharmaceutical companies, but after so long, and people just started to trust her. And just,
it's like a domino effect.
You could
kind of like, if you get one person and it kind of gets
right
one,
that.
and it kind of like, and it snowballs to the point where like Henry Kissinger's on their board, and just like, well, you're going to sit there and say that, and then, Bill Clinton interviews her and endorses her. And it's like, if the Clinton Foundation's endorsing you, then it's got to be, it's got to be real, and they're doing deals with Walgreens. I'll tell you, that's my favorite bit of the show, is the whole Walgreens thing. That was so fascinating. And Alan Ruck, if someone just told me Alan Ruck is in, I love Alan Ruck, and he's the guy who plays the Walgreens CEO in that, or not CEO. He's the guy who's trying to get this deal through.
He's the doctor that works for them.
Yeah. And so he's part of, like, he's on the board or something, but he was advocating this, and boy, does he nail that character so clear, and that's fascinating. And this is not going to be a discussion about all the ins and outs of the show Dropout, but you should watch it. The Dropout. It's on Hulu. Okay, we're going to jump in. We're going to jump into our first movie. We have a little graphic and then some music interlude, and then Diane will be giving us the basic plot of the 2018 heist. Would you call it a heist movie? I mean, it certainly has a heist in it. And it certainly revolves around a heist, but whether it's called a heist movie is a whole other thing. Okay, we'll do that. And Diane will explain the plot of that right after this, our feature presentation.
Oh, I'm on.
Yep.
Great. I think after watching this movie, I need to change my name from Diane to Aunt D. Because there are times where my opinion of a movie is going to be really generational, and I think this might be one of them. So let me tell you how, because I'm going to give you the description of this movie, and from that you'll know that I am from a different generation of these children. American Animals is a docudrama about 4 privileged college boys who decide to plan and execute the theft of the rare book of James Audubon's book, Birds of America, before their brain has developed a sense of consequence. The movie itself is based upon a book that was written by one of these thieves while he was in federal prison.
This seems a little pointed, Diane.
You can take it from there, right?
Great. I changed your name with your title on there.
Thank you. Because these boys needed an Aunt D in their life to tell them to just stop what you're doing because you don't understand the consequences of what you're doing, and you need to just stop. I don't care who you are. You need to stop.
Okay, Gus, what did you think about I think you liked it, didn't you, or something?
I did like it. I thought it was very. So I mean, a lot of things get lost in the news. So I mean, I had no idea that this ever happened. So
well, it's a small time
the fact that it happened
crime.
I don't know.
It's kind of a small time
Would you
crime.
call it an all-time crime?
Oh, I say small time. It's kind of it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not a.
Yeah.
Like they don't spoiler alert. They don't successfully capture the thing that they were trying to get. They end up getting 2 other books that were not as prized, but they still had value, of course.
Valuable, I guess. Yeah.
And but then they were caught and everything. So nothing. Well, there is one thing that happens, but yeah. But go ahead, Gus.
Yeah, I did that, and it was very interesting to begin with, just how they're able to portray the actual individuals who went through with the heist were actually a part of the film, and I don't think I've ever watched a movie like that where it was Hollywood, and then kind of like a documentary feel at the same time.
Yes.
So I thought it was a good mix between the two.
Now that's interesting. Like so to understand, this movie is part documentary, part narrative film. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's probably 50-50. It's more like, it's like 75, would you say?
80-20.
80-20, maybe 80-20.
80-20. Yeah, it's a docudrama, that's for sure.
It's definitely, it's mostly the film, but there are sprinkled in little bits of the actual people who are involved in this or related to the crime, that you do get them like short bits that's sort of explaining plot points or explaining what they were feeling.
Why they were doing what they were doing.
So there was that.
I decided to get involved in the theft of a federal property because I'd had a falling out with my buddy, and this was my way to get back in with him.
Yeah, so I did write down, Diane, this might be just a question for me and you, but is this the male version of the bling ring?
Yeah. I know. Wait, I don't know. It's just so sad. It's so sad in so many ways.
Did you like
it? Is.
Did you like the movie, or I know you don't like the characters, but did you like the movie?
Well, none of the characters are redeeming. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can see how young men can get easily manipulated by their peers. I mean, they did this to themselves now. But I like the way that, like Gus said, where they infused the real life, you know, people who actually were dumb enough to try this with, you know, throughout the course of the movie. And gave it kind of that documentary kind of feel to it. Because that's how you knew it was truly real. What I couldn't take or tolerate from it was the excuses. It was like, well, you know, I wanted to be an artist and I thought I needed to suffer for that. And I was like, well, then cut off your own freaking ear. You know, I mean, come on.
So,
was there really a reason to make Ann Dodd pee her pants? Not cool.
So,
the other thing that I thought was interesting is that
I feel like that probably needs some explanation, but we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
we really don't need to talk about that again. The perspective of the movie changed halfway through too.
Yes.
From the movie itself was based upon a book that was written by one of the guys that was part of the heist. But the movie starts off with from the perspective of the artist who is a player in this thing, but not the original author of the book. But it switches halfway through to the perspective of the guy who wrote the book. So then it was, you know, kind of,
I don't know if it's as clear that it switches. I mean, it certainly pivots. I mean, it doesn't like, it's not like a hard pivot. The movie doesn't it just sort of becomes that the main guy, the artist guy, gets kind of put a little bit in the background, but then he comes back at the very end. But it just sort of slowly pivots. It's not like a hard pivot, but yeah. I mean, so what I'm hearing is you obviously didn't like the subjects and stuff and what in their actions, of course. But did you like the movie at all? I mean, did you?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it. It was better than a Dateline in the sense that it was more entertaining.
Yeah.
Than a Dateline.
I think.
You know? But yeah, so I did enjoy the movie. I enjoyed the actors who portrayed their counterparts.
Yeah.
They did a good job on casting these guys, and the guy who was kind of their ringleader, who had the charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the charisma to get these other guys to follow him, even though the reality was, in real life, would you have ever listened to this dude? No. You would never follow him.
I think so. What they did great.
Only if you were like an 18 or 19-year-old dude that's in college away from mama for the first time. Come on.
What they did great, I mean, what I thought that what was probably the best part of like explaining this is how like incrementalism and how like it's like slowly sort of happens. And like I think that they did that part really well, of the fact that like, oh, are we doing this? We're talking about it like where you talk about something. I mean, I think we've all been in situations where you sort of talk about something hypothetically, and then it's like, oh, is this? But we're not going to do something or whatever whatever the case is. Yeah. You have some sort of checks and balances, but then like, but their problem was the fact that like, oh wait, can we do this? Like that was sort of the thing. Like we're gonna sort of play this and see, like, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if we stole this thing that's worth $1 million or millions of dollars? It wouldn't
because
it be crazy?
Our brains haven't developed enough to figure out there's consequences to every action.
Yes, well, I understand that. So sure, but like, I think like we've all like I've been in situations where I'm like, boy, that thing this shouldn't be this easy or whatever. Or like I could see how this thing could get stolen, or this thing could be, or like security here is like, you know, you can just sort of, your mind sort of goes to like different things of like, this horrible thing could happen and I could do the horrible thing, but of course you're not going to. But the thing is like you could, and you sort of see different situations in life where you're like, that there should be some more checks and balances here. There should be like some sort of, I remember I was at, MoMA. We had when I went to New York for honor, or we had an honors trip to New York, and we went to see before it opened, we saw this tour of MoMA, and I went around the corner. We're getting like a tour of it before it opened, and I walk around the corner, and there's like Starry Night by Van Gogh. and it's just no one's around it. And I kind of walk around the corner because we were in one section of the gallery, and I walk around here and it's just me in this room with Starry Night, and I'm like, I shouldn't be here unchecked next to one of the most priceless artifacts there. I mean, like, if I had no one, I mean, like, I could take with my hands and rip it out of its thing. I mean, like, I could do something. I mean, I wouldn't be able to get away with whatever I'm doing, but I could do something horrible, and I shouldn't be able to be this close unchecked to this work of art. And it seemed bizarre and odd. And I feel like, in situations where you have like where they're like there and there's like, this is at your school, and you can sort of get away. you have a behind the scenes look at some of these things and how these things operate, and it's there and it could be taken. And so you sort of walk through, well, what would it take? And I can see that. I can see walking through it and talking it over with people. But of course, you do have the checkpoint of, hopefully, you have the checkpoint in, there's consequences to this. A, there's consequences to it. And then B, that it's just morally bad. And I think that if I've thought about that constantly in life, if I didn't have those two things checking, that if I constantly didn't have an insane amount of that, I know I'd feel guilt. Like the fact that has stopped me in so many things, consequences, and the fact that I know that I feel an intense amount of guilt about everything. Those are the only two things that keep me in check. If I didn't have that, which some people don't, I know people who don't have that, but they don't have the I don't think that they have the thought. I certainly have the thoughts. I certainly have I could do this thing, but they don't.
Your brain is fully developed. Congratulations.
We all have
and
those
trust
thoughts.
me,
It's just you don't act on it.
Yes, but like I
could literally walk into my garage right now and steal my car, but you're not going to, right? Yeah, because it would be wrong to do something like that. So this is part of what got me in this whole deal. They talked this over for like a year. And this one guy that you're seeing the whole movie from his perspective is like, well, I really thought that this would stop it. This right here, this one thing would stop what we're going to do. But it didn't. And then I thought this one thing would stop. And at no point does he say, I should have stopped it. I could have stopped it. He never did. Not one time. Those four guys.
I love how. I was going to say, I love how amateur it is. That's what
it
gets
is so
it for me.
amateur.
Is that like it was so amateur to the point that they even Googled how to perform a bank heist, and I thought that was so. Like, why are you even typing that into a Google search?
Well, at a public universe on a public Wi-Fi system. Exactly. He was out in the open.
They've watched Ocean's 11 too many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I admire to a degree, even though obviously no one should be stealing, art or especially huge pieces to land yourself 7 years in jail. Mm-hmm. But I admire the commitment to think this through, plan it all out. I mean, they were pretty...
I would plan a heist. But then I would stop and not do it.
But that's just it. Their plan was so poor that all those things where you said, oh, I could easily do this, they found out, oh gosh, that wasn't too easy after all, was it? They couldn't exit. Yeah. They couldn't get in.
You're right. You're right.
They literally could do nothing.
That's the humorous part that should have been sort of played up, and it kind of was. But like,
I thought so too, yeah.
that like the fact that they had spent all this time planning it, but then they didn't like have an escape route planned. They thought their plan did not work, and so they had to just panic and so they were not prepared for it. But like, the movie does so. There's before and after the heist. That's sort of those are the big sort of there's a shift there that when the day of the heist, and then of course that's not the actual day, but there is that shift there that like before this, it's about the film's sort of about like they're caught up in it. There's bits about how they're influenced by media. That's a part of it. about how they watch all these heist movies and sort of see how they do it there, and they have one scene where they're kind of doing the literal Ocean's 11 style heist of how they would break in and take it. And so I thought that should have been played up a little bit more, because like in that sense it's somewhat similar to the Bling Ring in the sense like they're both like have like how people, and that's been in a few of our movies about how people are influenced by media, and that should have, I think, been heightened, if that was your point, because the big problem that I have with this movie, which is a movie that I've brought up several times, a problem I have several times in all of our movies, and that is why are these characters doing this? And I don't think the movie ever really truly gets to the heart of that. It brings up,
they don't even know why they're doing it.
Well,
Yes.
I think it started from an infatuation that the artist had with the paintings, and I think that's where it really stems from. The infatuation of that the paintings were something he admired, he really loved about, and he just so happened to tell his buddy, who is a klepto, loves to steal things, and they just kind of put that in there, you know. And he was just like, okay, he's like, we could do this and make millions. So I think that's how it really just kind of took off from there.
Well, yeah, the artist guy said felt like he needed to suffer in order to become a good artist.
Now that's the only why.
Part of it.
That's the only why. And then and then at the very end, there's the little reveal that, I mean, like with the actual librarian, that like they're sort of saying that they don't really know why they did this, and like, well, then explore that they're kind of aimless and that they don't really know what they're doing with their life. Like, there's a way to sort of explore that a little bit deeper. That like, okay, they don't know, they're just doing that.
It gives them an excuse. You know, I think in a lot of ways that would just give him an excuse. I'm having to look up this guy's name because I can't remember the guy's name. Isn't that terrible?
Which one? The actor or the
Warren?
Oh,
the guy,
Warren.
The Warren, the head.
Right.
Yeah, the ringleader Warren, who is obviously just rebelling against everything in his life. The real character even said, the real guy, the real Warren even said, I've been told I was special my whole life. So therefore, I needed to do something special.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more privilege could that get? I love it. Ava, you are so right. If only they would use their powers for good instead of evil.
Yeah. Which they had plans to do that. The one was like, I'm becoming an accountant to work for the FBI. He wanted to work for the FBI. Yeah. And then, I mean, the other one wanted to be an artist, you know, and but he didn't feel like he had the struggle that some people have, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you didn't. I don't know, but boy, is that so many people who want to, like, I want to be an artist without, you know, the whole, you know, the struggle part of it, and it's like, yeah, well, that's not. I don't know how that somehow works, you know, sometimes, but yeah, I thought it was incredibly scary for like the actors in it to be like, you have to act these people and bring them to life, and then the audience is going to see the real people right next to your performance. Like that's got to be scary for them to be like, I have to be like, to embody the person and have the reference point be right in the movie with them. Like that's kind of difficult.
I don't know. They're playing these guys, you know, 10 years or, you know, younger than they are now.
Yeah.
You know, 10 to 12, probably years younger than they are now.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they have to nail the characters perfectly. What they need to nail is the
essence,
the mindset of a 20-year-old dude. Yeah. That really believes they can get away with stealing.
But they still kind of got to get the feel of the characters. I mean, like it's in the voices a little bit, like, you know, just a little bit of like, it's you know, it typically actors don't, if they're playing a real person, they don't have to have the real person next to them, and you have to be like, because it is kind of like, you're kind of like, oh, they don't look exactly like them, but like, and it's kind of like, it makes the performance, it makes it more like that they're doing a performance than if you were engrossed in an actual movie. It kind of adds this layer of, this is a film on top of it, like where most films don't have that sort of layer. which is weird. That it's a little odd. I must say one of my three was the sort of blend of one of my three things that list I liked was the great mix of the documentary and narrative we talked about at the beginning. I did like that a lot. I do think there were great elements of like sometimes the actors were in the scenes in different spots, so they would appear like that. That was cool. That they didn't use that enough. I feel like it was just happened just a handful of times, but I kind of wish that would have happened a little bit more often. Where like they're clarifying things within the scene. I remember the gas station one was the one that I remember in particular, where he's like out in the car and he's like, "Yeah, this is how he's remembering it," and he's like in the car with the actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other
That was
time was
good.
when they were on their way to the heist, and the artist saw himself in the driveway of the house. That ended up
Yes.
being the end of the movie too.
Yeah, and so I just kind of wish there was more of that element to it. But it was cool when that happened, and there were parts of it that they had to do a little bit of acting per se. I mean, they were being themselves, but like they were like whenever they were in the scenes, whenever they were like they had at the very end, they had to like get up and walk away, which it seems like simple stuff, but like working with these are real people. And never once does it like ring like I'm doing acting like some people. If you were just going to pick four random people to be like you're going to be in this movie and you're playing yourself, and like they would seem awkward and like and weird and like and kind of take you out of it. But they I thought they did all a really good job at that. I mean, they're criminals, but they did a good job at acting in this movie.
One of my favorite scenes is when the real life Spencer is in his driveway, where he obviously lives with his parents and does his art in the garage in real life. And he's standing in his driveway, and in that same scene is the car going by with his actor opposite looking out the window.
That's what Gus was
And
like
he watches
mentioning.
the car.
Yeah.
That was that was really a good scene. That in probably the most provoking one.
Yes.
But, yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I think I would recommend it for somebody who wants a heist movie. You know, just keep in mind that these are teenagers, so the heist is going to go the way you think it will.
Yes, I do have. I think
The Bling Ring girls were actually more successful than these guys.
Yes,
I mean, I hate this.
and they were stealing
really
from celebrities. Like they were
Exactly.
and that's you're right.
They were going up against security systems and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This does have what I think is going to be. I'm starting this new trend where I pick the line, the movie quote of the night, or this week, and it's right before the heist as they're in their makeup, and he says, "Remember, you're old." And right before that, and I just found that to be hysterical because they're all in there, and that does not work. That's the heist that doesn't work.
I really liked how they touched up on the whole names too, with the whole giving a tribute to Reservoir Dogs. And I thought that was great. You know, so if people haven't watched Reservoir Dogs, you're not really going to get that reference. But that was a great scene right there. Mr. Green, Mr. Black, Mr. Yellow, Mr. Pink, and just I thought that was. And then what threw me off though about that is they when they were going to do the first heist, they dressed up as old men. And they aborted that mission. And then they come the next day and they're like, well, we're just going to ditch the whole old man look. Yeah. And I never really understood why they decided to do that, which I thought that was a good plan to begin with. For identity purposes, nobody's going to really recognize any of them. But
it goes to show
they decided to make that change.
It goes to show like that they were like planning, but then like it was ultimately they were just ditching things right and left to for what? I mean, at the end of the day, like they didn't even get they ditched the whole idea of this makeup thing. They ditched the whole idea of like they changed their whole like lookout scheme very last minute of like who's doing that, and then like the whole how they were going to dispatch of the librarian was like changed on the day, and then of course then they lose the books at the end of the day. So it's just like there was just so many things that end up getting that they end up just getting rid of just to I guess
they go to New York and try to pass themselves off as art dealers when they just look like they started shaving yesterday. And he gives him his home phone number
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, seriously,
Mhm.
this cannot have really happened this way. But sure enough, it really did. They really and truly believed
Mm-hmm.
this.
So they
This
do
is just,
yeah.
it's such a statement on our society.
Now they do a great there's a pivot that happens where like when the heist actually happens, it kind of does get like it shows it like it was kind of a comedy before, somewhat comedy adjacent, but like that it shows the seriousness of what they did whenever that actually goes, specifically with what they did with the librarian, that sort of goes into a form of like what they did was like kind of reprehensible. It's no longer it becomes like this is no longer fun and games and everything, and like I thought that they did a good job of doing that hard pivot of being like, this is where it all kind of went wrong. And like, that's the one, and they really clearly hit a nail on the head. Like that's the one thing that they did that was unquestionably wrong. And, that was kind of, it was horrifying. You were kind of like, what are they, how far are they going to go with this sort of thing? And
Right. Yeah.
that was not.
Yeah, that was pretty sad to watch the librarian just go through that whole, traumatic for her too. And I know Diane was referencing earlier about the fact that she, even wet herself, right? And having to watch that was the point where like, at some point I kind of like was laughing through the beginning of it, not that part specifically, but like with everything that was happening with these guys, and
it's like too funny.
you almost kind of sympathize for them a little bit in a way. We're like, oh my god, I can't believe these guys. Or the buildup was for me was at least, are they really going to pull this off? Because I didn't know the outcome of this. Well, you can kind of know where it was going to head, but I was like, are they really going to be able to steal this and walk out the door with everything? Yeah. But then when the shift, right, the shift with the librarian at that point, I mean, that's probably what was more triggering to be like, wow, I can't believe they actually did that. And it definitely, the rest of the movie was more of like, wow, they're eventually going to get caught now, but yeah, they took it too far.
Yeah. The other little extra things that I saw, Movie Pass. This was a Movie Pass movie. I didn't know that when it first started. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Movie Pass and its whole history about its great failure as a company. But yeah, there's only a few of those. I remember remember they did that John Travolta Gotti movie. That was a Movie Pass movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think there can't be that many of them. And the fact that they're kind of giving this movie away for free on a bunch of streaming services is kind of.
And that is one thing about it. This is definitely worth to watch because it is free.
Yeah.
On TV. I mean, it's not like you have to pay money for it, and it's well made in that sense. I mean, I've seen much worse at the theater and paid a lot of money for it, right? So
yeah.
Plus, I have to give a shout out to Jared Abrahams. Let me see. I want to make sure I say his name right. Abrahamson. He's a Canadian actor. He's the one who played Eric, the guy who wrote the book that went in with Warren into the library to actually steal the book. He's the actor that he was in one of my favorite Netflix series called Travelers. Travelers I think it has 3 seasons. It has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is so good, but it is a little bit mind altering. It makes enemies look like, pre-kindergarten school book, kind of, as far as what you have to wrap your mind around. But if you get a chance to watch it, definitely a great series. And he's great in it. He plays a high school guy in it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, let me rephrase that.
He's
actually an old guy in a young guy body. Anyway. So I'm going to give this, can I give my rating?
Cade, I was just going to say the actor that played.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, give your rating.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Gus.
What were you? Let's talk about the actors.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, Cade, I'm going to say the actor that played the
I think you're
Office.
going to say.
Barry Keoghan. Is
He's
that
gonna
it?
say- Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if anyone's seen. Well, you've seen the Batman,
Yeah.
the new Robert Pattinson.
I was going to mention that, but yeah, go
And
ahead.
I didn't know this until I was. Yeah, I was gonna say that he is gonna be the new Joker.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they released a scene with him online. They released a scene with him online where he's playing the Joker, and it's pretty interesting. It's interesting stuff. Well, I mean, it's just a short scene with him. So yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a different role than this one, but supposedly he was
in the Eternals.
Yes, people really like that.
From that too. He was in that.
I did have one question to wrap this up before we give our ratings for everybody. Who would you be during a heist? What would you be on a heist team? What would your role be? So we have I wrote down the roles here. You have the mastermind who sort of plans the whole thing. You have they didn't have this on there, but these are general ones. They have a brute who can take out people. You have a safe cracker, someone who can crack safes, typically. You have the driver, of course. They had that role. You have a smooth operator, someone who's good with people, who can get them into the situation and get them past people and talk them out of sticky situations. And then you have, lastly, the hacker, someone who hacks into things. What would you be in this situation?
Well, Diane thinks I would be the smooth operator. I think I would
He
be
is a smooth operator.
I think I'd be the driver.
You could do both.
Smooth operator, you got to be in the situation. You got to be flexible and get. I think Diane would be a good smooth operator. I think she can get us out of sticky situations.
Yes, I think so too.
I don't know. When I worked back in my working days, when I worked at the bank and ran the wire room for M-Bank Dallas at the time, I figured out how to steal money from the bank and get away with it, and then get myself to Belize, which at the time they had no, agreement.
Yeah.
And if there was one thing that I realized in that whole process is, number one, you can get caught. I don't care who you are. And number two, don't be part of a team. Because that's what's going to get you caught every time. So just you got to do it on your own. It needs to be a solo effort, no matter what.
Great. Well,
so I don't know.
It's good
I do
advice.
think that if I had been born in you guys' generation, though, I'd be a hacker for sure.
Yeah,
I definitely would do that because I almost could do it now if I just,
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm a little older, because then prison won't be so bad.
There you go.
I just finished reading a book where the 95-year-old guy is like, you know what? I could commit murder. I mean, 3 squares, I'd have a roof over my head. I'm 95,
Yeah, that's there you go.
It might be more work on the prison for at that point.
That's right. That's right. Get some free health care out of that one.
Yeah. You get a schedule.
Cade, I think that you would be the mastermind. I think that I would have to label you as the mastermind.
Yeah,
mastermind.
I think I'd like to do that in another life if I got bonked on the head or something where I didn't have the capacity for compassion or consequence or whatever. But I just had that screw loose. I feel like I could have been a lot of criminals, but so sad. That guilt and that empathy holds me back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are you gonna Diane? What are you gonna give this movie?
I'm gonna give it 3 cups of coffee.
3 cups of coffee.
Because in college you drink a lot of coffee.
Okay.
Because you got to, exams, and they had exams as part of this, little documentary. So
yes,
3 cups of coffee.
And I did write that down. What did I write down about this? I've never been so relieved that than seeing people do final exams and realize I don't have to ever do that again.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how old you get, you're always relieved to see that.
I'm like, I get 100% the stress of this, and I'm like, I never have to feel that for the rest of my life, and it feels so good. And people are like, why don't you get your master's? Or I'm like, no, Who would ever put themselves through that again?
I did, but yeah, I didn't have to do exams like that.
Mm.
But neither here nor there. You're right. No matter how old you get, never having to do another final is a big thing.
Yeah. Gus, what are you going to give this?
I'm going to give it 3 tacos. Yeah,
Okay.
3 out of 5
Yeah.
tacos. It was
I am.
it wasn't the best film, but it definitely wasn't the poorest film. So I felt in between. I really liked it. I definitely would recommend it. If you're more along the lines of stealing things, this is your movie. If you're if you're not opposed, or if you're big opposed to stealing things, then you're not really gonna like it. But I enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I was going to give this movie a flamingo, of course. I thought about giving it that or some sort of bird, but I don't know if you know this about me. Fun fact about Cade: I love birds. They're my favorite type of animal. I raised chickens when I was a kid, and I've had I just have a love of birds in general, and I didn't love this movie all that much to give it literally any bird emoji, because that's some high level stuff, and I wouldn't give him a flamingo, being that because flamingos are just amazing. Flamingos are amazing. So I'm not going to give it that.
A turtle for Darwin.
I could have done that.
That's
Yes.
the book they did steal. Yeah.
I'm just giving it a stack of books, 3 books, which is one more book than they were able to take. But which is, to say, it's fine. It's no, I don't think this is a great movie. But it's
but it was free.
But it was free. It's certainly, you're right. It's better than movies that I've paid money for. So
I would say it was better than the Bling Ring, even though that Bling Ring group was more successful as thieves.
And I'll tell you though, isn't like the Bling Ring a lot more interesting of like a story? Like that's where I'm kind of upset about the Bling Ring, is like that's a much more interesting of a story, and yet it's a much worse movie.
Well, I did learn that there's a Transylvania in Kentucky. So.
Yes, that's also true.
Yeah.
Transylvania. So this takes place, they're robbing Transylvania University in Kentucky. And I guess, like, historically speaking, I was talking to Diane a little bit before this about, I guess that Kentucky was bought, or this portion of Kentucky was bought, like, from the colony of North Carolina or whatever, and it was called the Transylvanian Purchase. And so that's why there's, like, parts of this area that they use that phrase or whatever, and that's why it's called Transylvania University. But I don't know why, of course, that purchase was called that, but it's interesting. I mean, that was an interesting thing I deep dived into and learned about. Okay, we're going to head into our intermission. Be sure to grab something from the concession stand during our 30-second intermission. Just run there and run back, and be here for our next movie, which is titled Enemy, and Gus will be giving us the synopsis of that movie after our intermission.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
Okay, so Enemy, as you can see, is starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It came out in 2013, and basically it starts off with a U.S. history professor who is recommended a film to watch by a colleague, and so he watches it and comes to find out that the person that's in the film is his real-life doppelganger. So he's fascinated by the fact that this person looks exactly like him, and he goes and he sets out to search for this person, and he does successfully. And when he meets them, that's when things start to kind of take a turn for the worse. They start to kind of become involved in their lives unwantedly, and the film is a good metaphor of fears that people go through in their lives and having a hard time accepting things. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job in this performance, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about it right now.
Yep. This was directed by Denis Villeneuve, and this was This was released the same year as Prisoners. I don't know if you guys ever saw Prisoners, but then and then afterwards he followed this up with Sicario, which this will be a little bit spoiler if I ever make this list, but it's my favorite movie of the 2010s. I love that movie so much. I think it's just a brilliant movie. And then that was what he followed this up with, and then of course he did Arrival. He did Arrival, and then he did Blade Runner 2049, and then he did Dune. So just an interesting thing to see how like he went from this movie to then like less than a decade later making Dune, and then just 4 years after this movie making a sequel to Blade Runner, which is just kind of for cinema people is kind of unheard of, and getting that gig, and from this sort of low budget. Certainly, there's effects, of course, in this movie, but it's interesting to see how he was able to do that. But of course, he's had movies before this and everything, and success before this, but just on a much smaller scale. But I thought it was important to mention that director.
Can I just get this out of the way, because it's really, since I watched this movie, I thought I have got to talk about this one thing.
Okay.
The aliens in Arrival make their first appearance in this movie.
Yeah. I didn't realize that either.
Sequence?
Like, yeah. So as people talked about that, because I don't, because like that's was my first sort of thing. Is like, isn't that? It sort of seems like that is the alien design. Alien design. I don't know if that was,
and he uses those kind of long-legged, mechanical, I guess, weapons of war in Dune as well. He kind of has this thing for spiders, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that was my one thing. So one of my three things that I have, since we'll just go ahead and talk about it, is the spider stuff. I wrote down the spider stuff. I really like the spider stuff. I mean, in the sense of I liked it. I was viscerally uncomfortable with all the spider stuff, but I did like it in the sense of, in the movie and how it was used and all that. And I wish there was more spider stuff. Loved the spider stuff. Could have dialed it up to 10. I would have hated it, but I would have appreciated it.
Yeah. Would have loved the imagery, which is what he was using it for.
Yeah.
Just to get people to, you have to have something to, I don't know, make your skin crawl. That's a perfect thing to use. To be symbolic of a mother's love, a wife's love, anything that can make your skin crawl. I love this movie. I'm going to just jump right in here and say Jake Gyllenhaal is so freaking underrated. Yeah. The more movies I see him in, the more I really appreciate him. In the sense, people talk about, maybe he's a method actor, but Jared Leto is also a method actor. It would never be able to pull this off.
Yes.
That Jake Gyllenhaal did.
Yeah, I was going to say I really enjoyed Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this, given that he really played two characters in the film, and total black and white when it came to or night and day with the actors or the characters in the film, I should say. And I wasn't a big fan of the plot itself, and the angle that it was going with. I thought the beginning it kind of threw me off. It started off one way, and then it just kind of, and then once it kind of got to the first character that Gyllenhaal was playing, who was the U.S. history teacher, it kind of I was like, well, so what was that first scene about? Like, I just had no idea where it was going. I felt like it was just going back and forth too many times for me. But I think that Jake Gyllenhaal did good in being flexible throughout the roles that he was playing. So that was one thing. I was gonna say the other thing that I did like though about the film was what Cade was saying with the spiders and how that portrayed real life fears, and that's really what the film I felt like was about. And just so that touching up on the spider, although Diana didn't like the spiders, so she definitely turned away. We were watching the film together.
Mm. Yeah, I must say I liked.
That was good.
My biggest problem with the movie is the structure, is the sort of the plot, the pacing. The pacing is so mind-numbingly slow, and it's like, that was where I was kind of like, I don't know, and it in the sort of avenues that it goes in, I didn't think it seemed too stream of consciousness, but like not enough if that was the point. Like it seemed meandering at times, and it's like, and where I thought the point of the movie, like if this is your point, then why are we wasting time with this sort of section of it? And just there was decisions that were made that, like, and I don't think it was director stuff. I think it had to be from the script that I was like, I liked all the stuff the director did except for making the whole film yellow. I hope we ditched that in the past. I can't. Which Sicario has a lot of yellow scenes. It's very yellow too, but it does it better. It's just because it's Roger Deakins is why it's done better. But
So Cade, did you think these were two separate people?
See, now you're getting into interesting things there. So that, I mean, because like
that kind of explains the color.
What do you mean?
That's a good point. Yeah, I get what you're saying. That the reason that it was in two different colors was because it might have been because it was two different people.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
It's a representation of the id versus the ego.
With the yellow?
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying there?
The opening of this, the way he lives, the way he works, the coloring of everything was like a prison. Did you notice that part?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Prisons can be any color. I'm just
but
saying the use of
the
yellow.
Minimalist of everything was to point out that this is a lifeless existence this person has.
Okay, yeah.
Now, he could have done that with vibrant colors and been more like Pushing Daisies. But I don't think he was going for a comedy on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean,
think he's using that to say this life is lifeless.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying like, I mean, you can do anything. It does not necessarily has to be yellow. I mean, I get, and it's like, even that's like a criticism that I've been I've heard as a director of like, oh, I don't like this. And it's like, well, that's just that's a personal preference, and that's what my thing is about Inez. And so probably I should have put that in the thing of like, this is a flaw with the movie. It's not a flaw. The yellow thing is not a flaw. It's more that is a personal preference of mine. Of like, I'm sick of seeing scenes that take place all in yellow, and if it's and it just sort of is a choice that I'm not aesthetically in tune with. So that was just a thing that I didn't like from that. But as a criticism of the film. The biggest actual criticism, not personal preference, is I found it to be a little too slow for its own good. Like it had to accomplish so much, and I don't feel like it moved it like in a way that and it's not saying I like slower movies. I just feel like there was so much that it was to explore, and I didn't feel like it explored anything with as great of a depth that I wish it would have. It either needed to go more dream sequences, do that whole thing where you're blurring this line and doing all that, do all that, which I would have loved that movie, or that it was abstract and there was just several threads that didn't make sense, or that were open to interpretation. Do that, or do this sort of rigidly structured character thing where like I don't know. So it was too ethereal and too real world, that those two things clashed too heavily for me, and then it was too slow to ever explore anything with great depth, unless you were going to make like a 3-hour movie, because of just how slow it was. It needed to be a little bit more, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I did like it. It was just, that was my one criticism.
Sorry, could you say that again?
That was my watch.
Get your watch.
That's my
Telling
watch.
you. That happens to me all the time.
What was one of your, so Jake Gyllenhaal, we really like Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's great in so many things. Okay, so we'll just jump into it since this is what we do. So what's your interpretation of this film? I did like that this leaves open to a lot of interpretations, and I don't think any of them's wrong, because I think that that's the point of these types of movies, and good movies are like that, where they're like open, and that anything can be true, and that it can have several different ways of viewing it. So what's your interpretation of the film?
So I think that the two characters, Anthony and Adam, were the same person, but one was an alter ego of, and I think more of Adam was the alter ego of Anthony. So Anthony was if I'm not mistaken, Anthony was the one who had the married life with the wife who was 6 months pregnant, and Adam was the U.S. history professor who lived a pretty, I would say, a normal bachelor life, but had the girlfriend and kind of did what he wanted. And so I felt like they had it was two different versions of themselves and made up one person. And so where Anthony felt like he wanted to live that single life, but was tied down by being married, and Adam wanted that, commitment to love, but was still, stuck in this single life. Yeah. And when the two characters came and met each other, that's where things kind of started to that's when decisions had to be made, right? And so you see that towards the end of the film when, Anthony ends up going with the girlfriend and Adam goes with the wife. And you just kind of see that.
I found that to be so reductionist there. Of that whole this is this weighty stuff that they're dealing with, and you're explaining it, I think, with a lot more depth than like the movie sort of has on its surface. Like if you dig deep, yeah, sure, you can find that stuff and everything, but like the movie sort of plays it more like he just wants to have sex with the other one's girlfriend. Like that's just at the root of it. Like that's just what it is. And so and it's just them like trading, and it's like, and I like if they're like
trading places, just trading wanting to trade places the whole time.
And it's like, but not the whole. I mean, this had literally happened like 10 minutes, or it seemed like just like these scenes like go on for forever. But like this would have just happened just a day ago or something within the and like in not too many like. I don't know. I didn't feel like I fully understood these people's psyche in some senses, but I don't know. But okay, so Diane, what's your interpretation of this?
Okay, so this is one person, and I think what it displays is we show different aspects of ourselves to people. The history teacher is never going to show the Andrew side of Adam, right? And then I think you have some symbolism there from the perspective that, they have the scar over the ribs. Andrew is, you got that whole thing where, Adam is the guy and Andrew came from his ribs. And then the girlfriend is obviously at the beginning when you first meet Andrew and his wife, she lays out, obviously he has had these affairs before. So Adam is experiencing the affair that Andrew has had. It's not like they were going to swap for a weekend in maybe the movie, but in this character, these women are in his life all the time.
So, okay.
This is how he's depicting it to them. The only time you see the two of them together or even talking to each other, they are completely alone. Yes. It only happens twice in the movie, and they're completely alone.
So you're telling me that, within this, he's literally a professor on the side and literally doing this acting role, and literally he doesn't remember the two things in between it? Like, is that what you're saying is literally happening in this movie, or are you saying that this is...
literally a history professor, right, who has this alter ego where he would like to be a two-bit actor. His wife actually came to the university and sat at that park bench, knowing that was her husband on the other bench, but he talks to her like he doesn't know who she is. She
'Cause he's keeping those
watch
two
her
things.
interpretation, how she is interpreting him. That is the biggest clue in the entire movie, and I think that's what makes it such a great watch. Is
Mhm.
that it's her character that you actually have to watch to understand what's going on with the other two,
Yes.
because she's the
Yeah.
one who's informing you of what's happening with this guy, right?
So,
You
okay.
even notice he goes around the corner before
The answer is the
she
phone. Yeah.
before the phone
Yeah,
rings.
that's a good.
But you're
that
trying
is a
to-
good
but
thing
so-
to point out right there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. So, but he's so he's lost it. Like, I mean, or like he's lived his entire life as like literally like, does he have some sort of mental thing that he's like doesn't?
Well, I think that, yeah. I think that when that movie opens up, you've seen somebody who's had a mental break at this point. He's already had the mental break,
Okay.
right? He doesn't remember when he's when he's Andrew. You know,
Mhm.
you're seeing this all from Adam's perspective, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because he's not interfacing with himself at that point.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, he
That
sees
even kind of
this-
explains the whole situation with like the apartment, even like the other apartment that Adam's living in. It's
Why it's so
just
bare
like
bones.
bare,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and so.
Well, there's that
which
conversation
leads
he
you to
has with
believe-
his mother at the beginning of "Thank you for showing me to your apartment," and then like, is that really where you're living or something? Or so I mean that makes
Well, and
sense
the,
with that
and the
conversation.
second conversation with his mother over the blueberries. I mean, there's the other big hint, right? That Dennis is giving you is the blueberries. His mother says, "Of course you like blueberries. You know you do."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I always thought that they were the one sort of thing, but I think like, I don't know. Like I've seen more movies that sort of do this abstract thing a little bit better than this, and then but like and just sort of and it's no fault of its own. But I mean, well, it kind of is. But I don't know. I just sort of wish it did that a little bit better. But I can't really tell you how. I mean, like I think the answer is more dream sequences. I think the answer the two things that I wanted more from this, more dream sequences, more explaining that underground sex ring thing that's going on, or the little
Well,
underground.
you know what? This is that to me.
Yeah.
That was really interesting too, because the beginning of
That's the opening of the
movie
film.
starts with that, right?
Yeah.
With the key in
Yeah.
the lock, and then you have after the swap, Adam goes to Andrew's apartment, gets on the elevator with the concierge. The concierge says, "I really want to go back." If you notice, that guy is the one who's walking in to the sex thing with him,
Yeah.
right? He says he really wants to go back. And inside that envelope is the key, right? To go back. And that's when his wife figures out that he isn't going to come back to her. That he truly is the asshole that she married at this point. I think that the guy that she married at the beginning was Adam, and the guy that she's with now is Andrew. When he says to her, "Do you have
Anthony.
plans for tonight? If not, I've got something I need to do." And he's going to take that key. He's going to take the concierge, and they're going to go back to that place.
So okay, walk me through. So
And that's what the whole spider image at the end is. When
Yeah.
he looks into the bedroom and
So
she's
for
now
me,
the spider.
I was just going to touch up on the interpretation. For me, is Anthony is chasing what Adam has, and Adam is chasing what Anthony has. And at the very end of the film, when Adam's finally home, or he's in the home of Anthony's, and he decides, okay, well, this is the life I'm going to live now. I'm going to be this great husband to this person that I'm with now. And he even finds the envelope that he had been given in the beginning when he went in trying to find more information about who Anthony was. And this is Adam. And he pulls it out, and he pulls out the ring to the underground sex ring, right? And he decides in that moment, which I thought that was really interesting there, was he pulls out the key. He decides, you know what? I think I'm going to go see what this is about. And when he goes and calls over to his wife, he goes and sees that she's a spider, right? And it starts, I think it starts all over again at that point for me, is him pulling out the ring and still not ending his infatuation of just still wanting to go out and live like an adulterous life. and that's why the spider pops up for me, the spider pops up at the end of the film is because he's still fearful of that commitment of just, this is who I want to be with, and that there's nothing else going on. So,
well,
it's
isn't
just
it kind of about being trapped in a marriage? Isn't that sort of the idea of the spider is sort of a metaphor for, and like that whole, then the giant spider of the city is the idea that like
I think the spider symbolizes. I was gonna say the spider symbolizes many different things, not just being trapped in a marriage, because the spider pops up a couple different times in the film, but I think that's a huge portion of it.
But that was the idea, is that it's a spider's web. The idea, like I believe, is that there's, and he's talking about whenever he's talking with this history class about these totalitarian regimes and this idea that people, how do you get the populace docile, and how do you get them to sort of, just accept their society and their norms and where things can happen. And it was the idea of like sedating them in some sort of way. And it was talking about entertainment, and it's talking about a lot of different things. And the sort of hint that I understood was that this is the idea in like modern society is trapping them in sort of in a marriage and like the workings of a family and everything. And that's how the society continues to grow, is that everyone gets their little houses and their families and their little lives, and nothing ever really changes. And that's sort of the idea that he's realizing at the end, that he's trapped in this spider web.
I think you're both right.
Okay.
Gus said earlier it was about fear. Being trapped in a spider's web is about fear. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably what caused his break. Whatever whenever that break occurred, it was as a result of fear. And and I think that's part of where the spider comes in. It's the fear of relationships. It's a fear of being loved. It's a fear of commitment. Mm-hmm. It's a fear of being trapped in a web. Yeah. It was an interesting movie. I thought I was very, very impressed with it. I could see where, it's definitely slower than a superhero movie by a long shot. Mm-hmm. And it was yellow.
Yeah.
How sad from that perspective. But I'm glad that I got
to
watch
when Diane disagrees with what I say. She patronizes me every time.
Yellow.
No,
I know how you feel about yellow. I've heard this before. So, yeah, that's why I have to kind of pick on you.
Yeah.
With the yellow thing.
Yeah, no,
What's the other word for it?
Sepia or whatever, where it's kind of a...
Sepia, yeah. And there's a lot of times I agree with you on that. Mm-hmm. That I don't want to see a yellow movie. I don't want to see the yellow coloring. Yeah. But in this case, I think it really plays into his feeling of being trapped and in a web, I guess, in that sense. That's why he was using it. I did go and do a little bit of research about the book that this is based on. There are no spiders in the book.
So that's what I assumed. I assumed like all the good parts of this movie, I think is Denis what he did with this. I think all his stuff with exception maybe the yellow. But like I said, Sicario's yellow and I liked it, and it's because I think it's a better cinematographer. Sorry if that's maybe a little bit mean to say to a cinematographer, but I mean you're competing against Sicario is shot by the greatest cinematographer of the past however many years. So I mean, like you can't really compare. I mean, comparing him to that is a different story. But
I wanted to say, don't they have any clear days in Canada? I mean, it was either smog or fog or
Boy, does this not make? Was it in Toronto? Is that where this is at? It does not make that city look all that fun.
I know. I was like, I know this has to be a much more beautiful city than this. And that's part of our trivia questions, that needle, that...
whatever that...
It's in a lot of our trivia questions, too. But
yes,
overall, the thing that I think I liked the most about this movie, though, was Jake Gyllenhaal. Just the way that he was able to just use his own posture. To create differences between these two guys that look exactly alike. And in an interview that that with him that I watched on Prime after the movie, he talked about how, he wanted the professor's, jackets to have big pockets in them so he could stuff his hands down in his pockets to force him to kind of slump over a little bit. and to slouch more and be that. And then in some of the scenes where he's playing Andrew or Anthony, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Andrew.
Anthony.
I don't know how people remember their names anyways.
Yeah, he is.
So bad at
He's
that.
using some of his own clothes. They wanted to be fit tighter. He said that playing the part of Anthony was easy because it's what he is.
Yeah.
A 2-bit actor. But the part of the professor took a little bit more. And Dennis Villeneuve, talked about being in these scenes with him where he had to be both characters and how amazing it was to see him transform himself that way.
So how do they do? So I was thinking like whenever he grabs him, his hand goes underneath. That was one of the because whenever there's twins on and stuff like that, I'm always interested in like. So they had to have his arm go underneath the camera take to then have the hand grab from the side, and so that was obviously not his hand, but like when they had to split the camera. So that was interesting from a technical level of just different things of seeing how they had to do that.
I know every time they're on camera together, I wanted to stop it and go straight.
Yes.
To see how in the world did they do that? Of course,
So how do you guys?
Another actor.
When you hear names, does that immediately? Do you remember those names, or did you have to write that down? How did you remember what the names of those two characters?
I remembered Adam, but Anthony, Andrew, I got that mixed up.
So awful. I'm awful. I mean, I'm not even better at. I'll tell you how bad all this is. Like, is so like names and faces. I'm horrible with. Whenever they revealed the lady, I'm like, is she the same as the girlfriend? I can't.
know. Did you?
Yeah, I had that kind of.
I had the same thing. I was thinking, thank God one of these actresses is pregnant.
Yes.
Because if she wasn't, I'd never know who I was looking at because they look exactly alike.
Okay, I'm glad that I wasn't alone on that because I thought that too. I'm like, is she the same person? I had to like look it up. I'm like, no, okay, they're not the same. Because it was my first thought. I'm like, are these the same people? Yeah.
I thought it was the same person too until they. Yeah, I was just thankful that they had her pregnant because if they were on screen side by side, they'd be a different story. But
yeah,
let's face it, you would have to be blonde to understand the difference between those two, I think.
Yeah. So
okay,
they weren't simultaneous. Like that's the only thing of them saying they're one person. So it's trying to figure out how the last act works then. How does the last act work where he's off with this lady and then he's also at his house? Or is that supposed to happen before while she's gone? And then, like, how does that timeline work of that? And then also, are we trying to suggest that the car crash is in his mind?
Yeah, I think it is because, the radio, they turned it off before it gets to, the actual crash.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear there's a radio that says that the car crash happened, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't say who's in it or anything like that.
Ah, okay. So you're saying like a car crash also happened, but it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah. That's how he eliminates.
The car crash is supposed to just represent the end of that. It's supposed to be the end to him.
Yeah, that relationship or even just that life in general. Yeah.
Until he finds the key and tells her, I've got to go out tonight.
So the key was sent to his modeling agency, his acting agency, right? Why was it? It was sent there because who? Sorry, there's so much questions of that I'm like, why isn't that explored more? I want to know more about that.
His mom kind of talked about that, right? In that conversation that they had, that he needed to give up this fantasy of being a 3-bit actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she kind of laid that out for you to say, yes, he did do this.
So yes, and even
the security guard, the guy at the front desk is like, yeah, we haven't seen you in 6 months. It's like, oh well, that's because it's not his real life.
Yeah. So, or
because he got his wife pregnant. That could be too.
Because it's the same amount of time. Pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he had to be a real person, be a whole person.
But okay. So are we to expect that his coworker sit and watch this movie, and this was his way of bringing up to him that like, are you in these movies? I watched this movie in that you're in that because like is that what that conversation was, or are we to expect that he watched this whole movie and like didn't recognize his coworker is in it and just randomly recommended that movie? I don't think that makes sense. It makes much more sense that he went and watched this movie, this local movie that was produced, and saw him in this movie, and then went to him and was like, hey, the best way of like asking him if he's in this movie is like, do you like watch movies and stuff? And like was to just bring up the fact that I watched this movie that you're in. Was this his roundabout way of bringing that up?
I think it was Adam's brain making up a coworker, right?
Is that what you think?
To bring into his id, right? That he exists on in a film. He actually did the film, right? But he's got that out of his brain.
But I
think it up that whole conversation just to get himself back.
He makes up that conversation to be like also that someone had watched this movie and that they had or that would be a movie that people had seen or something.
How in the earth is he going to find his way to that movie unless he has a conversation with somebody?
No, that's true. Yeah.
I
just like the idea that there was this guy who he watched this local movie.
There's two different guys. Yeah.
I like that this idea that that this guy went and watched this local movie, and he's like watches it, and he's like, wait, that's my coworker who's also a professor playing this bellhop in this movie. And so he's like goes and he's sitting alone with him at this break room, and he's like, okay, how do I bring this up to this guy? Oh, so you like you watch movies and stuff? And, he's trying to like say that he watched this movie with him in it without saying it. And he's like, and then like he reacts so hostilely to it and doesn't answer because he's like, no, I don't have time to watch movies. And so he doesn't react the way that because the way that conversation goes in his head, oh yeah, I like movies. And he's like, well, I saw a movie recently and it has, it's this one, then you're in it, right? And so he kind of like has to be, yeah, I saw this movie. And then he doesn't ever react to it. I like that a lot, that idea. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to bring up that you liked or anything? Anything we missed? I don't think it's Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance. And I don't think it's still Denis Villeneuve's best movie, but it's still solid, and it's good to see, these people make a movie, and it's pretty interesting nonetheless. Okay, Diane, what are you gonna give it? Oh, never mind. We'll go Gus. We'll go Gus first since we went first.
Okay.
Gus, what are you gonna give it?
Okay, I'm gonna give it 2 tacos. I was not a fan of the film.
Oh.
I really love Jake Gyllenhaal, but I spent more time saying wait what the whole time. And then at the end, it had to be explained more by a interview that was done with the director and the actor. I just was not.
So yes,
this film, yeah. The only reason why I gave it 2 tacos is because of Jake Gyllenhaal.
So
he deserves 2 tacos at least.
Yes, it's one of these movies that like. Because I've heard it talked about and people in film things, and it's one of these movies that's kind of people sit there and like they explain why it's good, and it's like, well, if my initial reaction wasn't that it was it wasn't like, because my gut reaction is like, it was fine, and I was kind of confused, not confused by what was happening, but the choices that they were making, and I still am like, this is the way that you tell this story is still kind of mind-boggling to me that this is how you tell it, but like it's like, oh, but you don't get it, and it's like one of these movies that's like you have to, it's like that the whole chore is getting it, and it's like, yeah, no, I get it. No one like, or like I even like I understand that there's different interpretations to it, but like some people construe that to mean that the movie's great because and if you don't like it, then it's just because you don't get it. And it's one of these movies, and it's like, okay, no, I have problems with it, and I understand like that there's interesting things to it or whatever, but it's just ultimately, not completely my cup of tea, but it's not bad. It's not, and there's a lot of interesting things to it. And the most interesting thing about it is the spider, which is what I gave it. I went ahead and did my rating since I could walk right into it. The spider stuff's the best part. Even more so than Jake Gyllenhaal. I've seen him do better. So yeah, that's my rating of the film. Diane, what are you gonna give it?
I'm going to give it 2 blueberries.
Oh God, you're taking blueberries now?
Just this one time.
Yeah, let's not make this a pattern, Diane.
It's a blue. I mean, there's no drink that can make this better. There's just, it's psychological thrillers are this one falls short of the psychological thriller aspect of it. I love Dennis's work in Arrival. There was no yellow.
No, there was.
Yeah. And there were
They
spiders.
completely removed the yellow from the movie. Yeah.
There's no yellow in the movie, but there were spiders. So yes, I recommend if you really want to see a good Dennis Villeneuve movie, watch Arrival.
And I'd recommend Sicario. That's my one of his. But yes, but yeah, you're right. If you want more spider things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. More, I mean, like that one's also heady, but like it doesn't lose track of its characters. Like the character, like that, like Amy Adams' character is very fleshed out and very interesting, and it's telling a bigger story, and the pacing's a lot better. It's slow too, but it kind of, the way it evolves is a much more interesting evolution.
And he takes care of her in the movie. I mean, he makes her a good character. The female characters in Enemies, they're horrible. I mean, it was like, you must really hate women, right?
I kind of agree. I was kind of shocked by how kind of
and every time he uses the spiders, it's to represent women too. Mm-hmm. Got it in there for you, Ava, because I know you and I both know that's what he was doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was something that I was kind of shocked by how sort of it kind of seemed to, the movie did seem to not like women or cast them in a really kind of, I don't know, they were either objects or they were some sort of evil presence that was trying to entrap him.
Yes, that's how he was envisioning them, I guess. Yeah. And although one of the actresses did win the Canadian Screen Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role. Yeah, I think it was the girl who played the wife.
Yeah, she was good. She was good for what she had. Okay. Well,
why is Enemy so yellow? It's actually out here. This is a Google question. Why is it so yellow? It's like,
a Reddit question.
Is it coming from pollution in Toronto? It was there. Oh my gosh.
It's a whole thing.
They actually answer this, and it says that it was something that we wanted to add via FX, but as we were shooting in Toronto in the summer, there was so much pollution we didn't have to add anything. So your yellow came from the actual pollution in Toronto. Wow,
this movie should have been called I don't know. It was because there's I don't know if you know the Chinatown sequel was
called Yellow. Cade.
It should have been called Yellow.
Right.
So the Chinatown sequel is called The Two Jakes, and this should have been called The Two Jakes, or it should have been called or Two Jakes in Yellow Rooms, because that's what it was Jake Gyllenhaal sitting in a room, a completely yellow room, talking to somebody.
The one thing that I have to say this about one of the scenes in the movie that I think he really captures well, that I really experienced when I worked in Chicago, and Ava's going to appreciate this because she also lived there. When you are living in those apartments and you look out your balcony or out your window and you see an apartment complex exactly like yours across the street, and all these people are living like rats in a maze, and it is like you're trapped. It's very claustrophobic feeling. And I think he really captures that experience well. And I know Ava's going to relate to that one. She's my friend that, lived in Chicago. And when you live in a city like that, you really are like, that feeling of being trapped is real.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that he did that really well.
Yeah, it's not Rear Window-ish. I mean, it's not that nice. It's a much more claustrophobic feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up about that. 2 blueberries.
2 blueberries. Yeah. Maybe I need to start ranking mine out of 10, my emojis. Since I only just pick one typically. But
And what was yours this time? The spider?
I just gave it a spider. Yeah.
You gave it a spider?
Gave it a spider.
If
I love
had
that
to pay
shot.
$3 and
I love that final shot, or the second where
Yeah.
where he walks around. That is a cool effect. I mean, it was startling. It was startling.
It was. I jumped. I did jump a little at that one because it wasn't what I expected at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the fact that I had to pay $3.99 for this movie really took away a blueberry. Because if it had been free, I might have given it a little bit better a run than that.
Well, get Showtime. Because that's what it's on Showtime. Okay.
Is that where you watched it, Showtime?
Yeah, it's on Showtime. So okay. And a lot of our films are. So we will go to preview time next and randomly pick our last winner or next week's our next week movies. I don't know why I said last winners. We'll pick next week's movies right now on preview time.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Let's take a look at what's coming your way. Okay. Everyone ready for this? Diane, 1 through 20. Pick a number between 1 through 20, and we'll let you know what it was.
13.
13. Oh, this is a fun movie. It's actually going to be
thank God.
This is actually supposed to be a fun, uplifting movie. So, are you ready? This is called Sing Street. Sing Street. It's a musical. A musical that takes place in the 80s in Britain, I believe. So it's got some new wave. So this has been on my radar for a bit.
Oh boy.
Okay.
What was it again? I'm sorry.
It's called Sing Street. Sing Street.
Sing as in sing a song?
Sing a song, and then street as a street. Mm-hmm. Sing Street. That's fun. Okay, guess what's going to be our second film? 1 through 20.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Come on, Dark.
1 through 20, I'm going to go with number 7.
Number 7. Okay. This one, also kind of supposed to be fun. I don't know what it is, but it's Mississippi Grind, which is I don't know if you've seen it. I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's like these gamblers. It's got who's it got in it? It's got Ben Mendelsohn is the one I was trying to think of, and somebody famous, Ryan Reynolds. It's Ryan Reynolds. Reynolds.
Okay.
And Ben Mendelsohn says, convinced that his newfound friend Ryan Reynolds is a good luck charm, a gambling addict, Ben Mendelsohn takes the man on a road trip to a high-stakes poker game in New Orleans.
I remember that. Seeing trailers for this when it came out.
Okay. Well, those are really fun ones. We're gonna have a real fun time.
It's called The Drama. It's got Sienna Miller in it, Alfie Woodward.
Oh, Alfie Woodward.
That sounds like it's going to be good. It says it's listed as a drama, but it's But Ryan Reynolds, yeah, can't imagine it staying in drama very long.
So that one's
Right.
also on Showtime. So that's that, and then the other one, Sing Street, is on. Let me see right now. It's on Tubi for free.
Yay, we like to be.
We like Tubi. Also, a lot of the stuff I learned. Gus is the one who told me this, or maybe learned this. Is that so? This week we could have. Well, I did halfway when I learned that halfway through watching this week's movie, American Animals. It's on Prime as well. So if you have Prime and you don't, and if you don't, that way you don't have to have ads.
Right.
So if you have, if you have
to
Prime,
rent it. Yeah.
No.
If you rent it.
You actually don't have to rent it. It's actually on Prime for free. This stuff, some of the stuff that's on Tubi. So American Animals, you could have watched for free on Prime without any ads.
Oh, I see.
If you have
what you're saying.
if you have a
Enemy was not.
Enemy was not. Yes.
No.
So-
Yeah, you had to rent that one.
Yes. So you can watch. So what I'm saying is Sing Street is on Prime Video for free. It's also on Tubi for free as well. Okay. Well, those are fun movies. And next week we'll have on Alex. Alex is coming back because we'll be previewing another episode of Cade and Friends podcast. If you guys haven't watched our first episode of the Cade and Friends podcast, go give it a listen.
I have.
Did you like it, Diane?
It was funny. But I know both of you. So it was like, it was exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
From the two of you.
So-
Interesting conversations. You do know Sing Street is a musical.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. It's a
Okay.
musical. Yeah.
Just want to make sure you know. Yes. Musical.
Yes, well, I had that on there as I knew it was going to be eventually a good movie to land on. We have
It has
a
Maria Kennedy in it, and I loved her in Orphan Black, and she's in Outlander. I just love her. Anyway,
perfect. Great. Anything? Did you enjoy your first time on the Double Feature Movie Club?
I did. Although I felt like I could have contributed a little bit more. I will admit that I had a little bit of some stage fright. But I appreciate you having me on and I'm glad I got to watch. I literally watched these movies before I jumped on. So they were definitely fresh in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad. I sometimes we'll have we have better movies than other times, and sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. Typically they're somewhere in the middle. So far, my two favorites have been because I'm working on this list of 2010s movies of what I want, and the only ones that's gone on my top 100 list thus far is I added Bad Education has been added, and Coherence. Those are the two that I really enjoyed the most. I don't know what your two are, Diane, if you had any that you really enjoyed.
I enjoyed Bad Education. I thought that was really a really well made movie, and I hate to say this bit because I know you guys are gonna laugh, but I loved Bad Words. I just loved that movie.
I added Bad Words too. I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's a movie that doesn't require you to think a whole lot, but you're going to laugh. It doesn't. You can watch it with kids. You can watch it with your girlfriends. You can I love that movie. I don't know if I don't have a top 100 because let's face it, that would have been ran out of at least 40 years ago. So
yeah. So I forgot I did add Bad Words to it, but just so you know, this podcast is a slight way for me to work through movies from the 2010s that I missed and adding them to my list because I'm putting together a comprehensive list of the movies that were released in the 2010s, the top 100 that I really enjoyed. So those three are the only ones that's been added thus far from what we've watched.
So you added Coherence, Bad Words, and
Bad Education. Yeah.
Bad Education. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure. I would not add either one of these.
No, I didn't think either one of these, and other ones I hadn't. No, these are those are the three thus far. But hopefully we add Sing Street. I could see myself really liking Sing Street if it is what I know it is. And Mississippi Grind sounds pretty fun as well.
Yeah, it could be. I will tell you that if you like Jake Gyllenhaal, instead of watching Enemy, watch Saturday Night Live from last night.
It's going to
He
be
was
just
so
thank you for
funny
mentioning
on
that
that.
out. Yeah.
He is such an eclectic actor. I mean, some of the he's so eclectic, and you can't. There's just not that many out there that can pull off some of the stuff he pulls off.
And he, his monologue, he sort of talked about how he was this method actor and sort of like he made these sort of other movies and he took it really seriously, and then now he's like just wanting to have a little bit more fun, and I think that's kind of interesting. And so I guess we'll see him, and we've kind of seen him shift more. I mean, he did recently. He did the last Spider-Man, not the last Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man before that, which was him kind of, I think, loosening up a little bit and loosening up and making millions and millions of dollars, but I think that he's going to start, seemingly from what in his monologue, he's going to kind of maybe do some more comedy stuff and do things. He was in one of John Mulaney's, his little comedy thing he did it on Netflix a few years ago, and so he's done a few more comedy stuff, so should be fun to see that. And he's really
Diana
great.
And I both just like looking at him, so I'm not dead yet. I may be old, but I'm not dead. So
yeah,
he's definitely some eye candy.
Yeah, I think his best performance is still Nightcrawler. I think in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty great. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. Anything you guys want to say before we head out of here? Anything you want to plug or say or recommend or?
Definitely watch the cookie, the Girl Scout cookies, man. I'm telling you, that was so much fun. Thank you for letting me be part of that. Okay. That was one of the best nights of trivia I think we ever had, and I don't even think we played that well, but yeah, we definitely sampled the Girl Scout cookies, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. Anything you have to say,
so,
Gus?
Yes, definitely watch that one.
I would say subscribe to Cade if you haven't. If you're watching this, Cade is great. Our trivia team. We either play great or we play horrible, but there's no in between.
You're right. We're either first or you're first or you're last, as they say.
We're either first or we're last. That's it. That's the only way to go.
It's like Gus says the whole game. We just got to stay within 30. We got to stay within 30.
That's right. Other than next week with I saw a great Ryan Reynolds film. I know that's hard to say, but on Netflix, it's called The Adam Project. So if anyone's looking for a Ryan Reynolds film to watch,
I watched that.
The
too,
Adam Project.
I thought it was really good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Just because he's in the Mississippi Grind, so that was a more recent one that I watched. But yeah. Thanks for having me on, Cade.
No problem. We'll have you on sometime in the future too, as well. We'll definitely have you back if you'll come back.
Yes, I would love to come back.
He's actually seen Batman, so.
Yeah, seen Batman. Yeah. So I can't talk about Batman with Diane because she hasn't seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, when you watch Batman, Diane, then we'll get back on and we'll do this again.
Yeah. And then we should just have a whole show just about Batman, right? Okay.
I don't know.
He's not one of my favorite characters, but that's okay.
Oh, I love Batman. But yeah, I've said that multiple times. Okay. Yeah. So see ya. Bye. Everyone wait, bye.
Bye everybody. Adios.